I just keep going and let me get it.
Okay. So today, we're going to talk about aquatic biomes and climates. So climates mean like inside the water. Because there are very specific zones that actually form based on how deep you go into lakes and rivers and even the ocean. Alright. Could someone read the two main questions for me, please?
What factors define aquatic biomes and I cannot say that word. Aquatic. Aquatic.
There you go. You got it.
It's a tongue twister for some reason. And it says the next one is what are the major terrestrial and aquatic biomes?
There you go. You got it. The objectives for me.
Identify the major freshwater biomes. Identify the major marine biomes.
Awesome. So we're going to talk about freshwater today, we're going to talk about saltwater today, and then where they meet as well. So just a reminder, you saw this last lecture, right? This is our levels of organization for talking about the biosphere and everything that our Earth encompasses. And again, we're talking this biome level today. Alright. So just like our terrestrial biomes, there are three main factors for defining our aquatic biomes: salinity, depth, and water flow. So salinity being what?
Salt water.
Salt content. Yeah, how much salt is in the water. Depth being how far down does it go. And then water flow is either how fast or slow a body of water is. So our first one is our streams and rivers. These are major sources of organic matter, which means that they help to recycle dead plant material because they do move and they push the leaves throughout and sometimes even out to the ocean. There are different speeds at which streams and rivers move. Some are really fast, which means that there's a lot of mixing of water with the atmosphere. So if you think about like a surface of water, right? There's always air that's touching it. So when water is moving, it means that that air is being moved and actually enriching the water of the river in this case. So that means that the oxygen level of the fast-moving rivers and streams are actually really high in oxygen, which means that salmon and trout really thrive in those environments. The more slow-moving ones, those aren't as oxygen-rich, but they are still like a good place for fish to live, as well as algae and plants. Now, why might a fast-moving river or stream not be a good place for like plants, or not be hospitable for plants?
The speed, I'm hypothetically thinking different. Or I'm just thinking from the top of my head. Like the speed of how fast the water is going is like destroying the roots of the plants.
Yeah, exactly, right? So like most times if you have a really fast moving stream or river, that plant that's like a little baby plant that's like growing, its roots are going to be like demolished pretty much, and it's not going to end up being able to either like ground itself or grow to the size that like a big tree is. And so that's why there's like in the slow moving ones, there's actually a lot more plants. And catfish also thrive in like slow moving environments. Now, of course, like the terrestrial biomes, there's also threats to our aquatic biomes. So these are things like excess nutrients from fertilizer runoff and pollutants. So fertilizer contains a lot of limiting nutrients for plants. Like they're very much heavy in nitrogen, which usually is like a limiting factor. When there's way too much of it, you get things called algal blooms, and the algae just goes insane and pretty much takes all the oxygen out of the water and everything else dies.
Is that why some rivers, like, I don't know, like if you go to river, like the algae will be so thick and it'll be all over the rocks?
Yeah, so there's different types of algae or moss or lichen. So sometimes you can see like really algae heavy rivers that have like really thick layers of algae. That's usually a sign that there's too many nutrients or like an unnatural amount of nutrients. And so yeah, so you can still see that. And then like of course like moss is slightly different, but you can see that on the riverbeds as well.
Thank you.
So our lakes and ponds, now that we have like a standing body of water, which means that it's not moving. Some lakes do have a natural like refilling and emptying, but most lakes just stay where they're at. They do have zones. So there's something called the littoral zone, which is like nearest the shore. It's pretty much the closest to the surface, and most photosynthesis occurs there. You have another one that's slightly deeper down. You can see like littoral and then limnetic zone. So the limnetic zone is like the open water area where light can still penetrate. However, there's not really that much photosynthesis going on because it's still deep enough where it's not getting enough sun to actually like complete photosynthesis. And then you have your profundal zone, which is the region of water that light does not reach. So there's a certain point where light will stop and it becomes pitch black and we would not be able to see a thing. And so this is always below the limnetic zone. So in this one, you have your littoral, which is the top, your limnetic, and your profundal zone. And then of course you have your benthic zone, which just means the like lake floor. Yeah.
Is there life in the profundal zone, like in the lake? Like
in this one?
The profundal zone. That's the,
No,
there's
no light. So like at a certain point, right, so if you see the sun rays, they only go down to here. So there's actually a distinct barrier in the water that like we can't see from if you look down, right? You can only see so much of a lake, which kind of makes it a little scary. But like anything that below that line or that where that sunlight hits, it will no longer be, it'll be no light whatsoever, nothing. Like there will be organisms there, for sure, but we can't see them.
It's probably the dumbest question. But how do we like scientifically know that there's nothing down? Like what if there's a sea monster or something that we don't know? Has anybody actually gone that far down in the water?
I don't know how far down people have gone in the lake. I know the ocean is more difficult to like maneuver down because of so much water. But we're able to send like little like little cameras and little like sensors down to the bottom of lakes and so that we can see how far down it goes. I know like in the ocean, like when we talk about deep water and like the deep ocean, we don't know that much about it, but the organisms that we do are actually fascinating. Being able to like live with like underneath that pressure and in that darkness. Yeah. So for lakes, there's a couple different types of productivity. There's one that's called oligotrophic, which means that it has a low level of productivity. There's mesotrophic, meso meaning middle, that is like a middle level of productivity. And then you have eutrophic, which is a high level of productivity. So eutrophic lakes can sometimes be a good thing and sometimes be a bad thing, depending on which organisms are actually being the producers. Yeah.
Can you go over that again?
Yeah. So productivity is talking about like how many living things are around in the lake, as well as like right on the near shore. So oligotrophic means that it's very low productivity. So there's not necessarily a lot of like living things in the lake. There's not really a lot of plants that are supporting it, or like photoplankton. Mesotrophic is kind of like in the middle, where it's like kind of productive but kind of not at the same time. And then the eutrophic is where it's like there's so much life that you're like, whoa, how did this happen? And so there's lots of like big diversity of fish, lots of diversity of plants, lots of phytoplankton, and the organisms that fish need to eat to survive. So again, our threats. A lot of our threats for lakes, rivers, and streams are going to be pollutants. So specifically like nutrient inputs, which end up making the water less clear because of an overgrowth of phytoplankton and algae. Yeah.
Question. I know it's like sound crazy. Okay. So does phytoplankton look like plankton? Like how like small? Is it like an animal or something like that?
Like you mean like in SpongeBob?
Yeah.
Yes, to a certain extent. So, like it is like SpongeBob is based off of like an ocean biome, right? Which is a good like cultural reference. I appreciate it. But I don't know. Like I know that the shape of them is very similar, and like the like having the little like
Antennas.
Yeah.
But the way how it operates might be different from the ocean.
Yeah, exactly. So in the ocean, right, or lakes, or rivers and streams, you have like the phytoplankton, but it's just using sunlight to create its own energy, and it can photosynthesize. So then we have our freshwater wetlands. So these are actually super important for a lot of different reasons. One, they reduce flooding and drought. So having freshwater wetlands, like wetlands means that for part of the year, they're fully like engrossed in like water. So like if it rains really hard or if there is a natural movement of water, you get a place that is like covered with water. And then at a certain point, sometimes they'll actually drain like naturally, and then they'll again be filled with water for part of the year. So these reduce flooding and drought because they have the capacity to absorb all of that water. They also filter pollutants, recharge the groundwater, and support bird species, specifically the migratory ones, because these are havens for those species. Now, threats, there are 3 different types, and I'll talk about them on the next slide. But oftentimes they're doing for agriculture because the land is actually really rich in nutrients. They're doing for development and to limit mosquito breeding, because it is standing water and mosquitoes love to be around standing water, like lakes or like these wetlands.
Question.
Yeah.
So with that, like on some like how that first picture, the one green, like the water in the top is green, like why some certain lakes or certain areas like the water has that little green like effect on them?
Like this green?
Yeah, like that green. Like,
yeah, so some locations have like more algae than others. And that's really like the biggest thing. So like some lakes you'll see are like crystal clear, or if you've seen like the fjords, right, up in like Norway and Sweden, you've seen pictures of those, right? They're super, super clear. Or tropical places, right? You can see really, really well. And the biggest thing I think is also temperature. So like the fjords are really, really cold. Their ice melt. And then the tropics are way too hot. And so this is kind of like a happy medium for those algae to survive and to continue to like grow.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I always just try to figure out what that was. It's like
Yeah, so there are 3 different types. So these are the pictures that you saw on the last slide. So this one is a swamp, which means that there are trees within the water. You can also think Shrek. Like Shrek lives in a swamp. There are trees around his property. So again, swamp, it means that there's trees. You can also think of like the bayou in Louisiana that has trees growing in, and so that is actually a swamp. You have a bog, which is actually super acidic. So this is again a wetland. If you can see, there's kind of like brush things, like not really trees, except on the, like the trees there are actually on the border of where the forest meets the bog. And then you have your marsh, which is like non-woody vegetation, which means a lot of grasses that grow there. Yeah.
Why is the bog acidic?
Why is the bog acidic?
Yeah.
I don't actually know off the top of my head. I can research it and let you know. I think it has to do with something about like the process of decomposition, specifically where that is. But I can look it up. Yeah, Antoine, what's up?
Okay, so you see how like in the swamp the trees grow and like the marsh, a tree wouldn't grow, it's just like grass around them. And it's like more of a clear path. So there's like, I wouldn't say acidic, but there's the different type of, the different amount of nutrients that make the two different, like make one grow tree and the other don't.
Yeah, that's part of it. The other part of it is that over like thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, these plants have been specializing to live in that environment. So even though you can't see the water like in between the grasses and the marsh, there's actually water like in between there. So you wouldn't be able to walk there very well. Like you could walk, but your boots would get stuck in the mud.
Oh, you don't know what it's like? What's that show I just watched? Outer Banks, like that's how the water is like in their area, like
The marsh.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So now you have more of a reference of like what that is. Yeah. So
Like I didn't learn from a TV
show. But then I have like a favorite slide coming up soon that I think is absolutely fascinating. Okay. Any questions? Any more questions? Would you all like to take a 2-minute break?
See,
All right. Go ahead and take a 2-minute break.